Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to continue with the new topic for today, continue from the previous video. This is about musical concepts and elements. They're just basic concepts and elements that I'm going to introduce you today. Now these are the topics that we're going to talk about today, which is basic musical concepts. And then there's rhythm, melody, then dynamics, timbre, structure, and texture. As you know from the previous video, we mentioned few of these. Now we're gonna go in more depth into what they are today. Now the first thing is musical concepts. So if you notice that musical concepts, actually they're one of the most and actually first basic things you need to know in music. And this actually keeps the sound in time. Normally, like keep it in the beat, okay, keep it on time. And this normally you have it in a few different types of musical concepts. For example, beat, rhythm, and duration as well. Now the first thing is beat. So what is beat? So beat is normally a regular pulse which provides basically like a timeline, okay, for the rhythm to work around on its own. Okay, second thing is rhythm. Now what is rhythm? So rhythm is actually very important. It's essentially repeated patterns of basically long and or short, stressed or unstressed sounds, or any silence actually, which fits into the main melody or main beat. Now next is duration. What is duration? Now, duration is actually the length of notes or sounds of silence which normally facilitate the rhythm. Okay? And music is also the relationship between sound and silence. And duration and rhythm comes into play here because it applies to silence in the same manner as they would be applied to sound. That's why it's very important. And then another way we can basically look at music or perceive music is horizontal and vertical patterns. Now normally the notes, okay, or the silences are normally commonly heard one after the other over a period of time. And secondly is we hear chords, which is actually a group of notes that we play simultaneously in a vertical pattern, okay, and it's a mixture of one or all three of these elements such as melody, rhythm, chords, and of course a silent form of musical pattern. Okay, now the next one is rhythm. So rhythm, what is rhythm? Now rhythm is another most basic concept of music. Now it is known to be in all cultures worldwide, and it's the most simple and basic form of music which has pure rhythm. Okay, and a rhythm is basically a type of pulse, and it's a repetition of sounds in a pattern. The most common rhythmic pattern that is used today in Western music is 4/4 time. Okay, this is where 4 pulses come one after the other, with the first of each 4 being given a little more emphasis, which is known to be an accent. Now, let us try some exercises based on this. Now, say the words 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. continuously at even time intervals. Now each time you say 1, say it slightly louder, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. Okay? Or if you were to use a metronome, the 1 will have a slightly different sound. For example, like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So if you listen, basically the 1 tick is 1 and top is 2, 3, 4. Okay? And another one is you've been saying 1, 2, 3 basically in 4/4 time. So that is what 4/4 time is. Next, melody. Now, what is a melody? Now, in music, normally we use pitch. And normally pitch is used to describe, okay, how high or low a note sounds. And normally there's a difference between, like, maybe high pitch is more of maybe scratching your fingernails across a blackboard, and the low notes probably sounds a little more like rumbling growl of thunder. If you know the movie Sound of Music, for example, the first few notes just happen to be do, re, mi. Actually, she was referring to the pitch. Now, using pitch together with rhythm, we can normally construct melodies. Without rhythm, notes would just be long, sustained sounds. And without pitch, each sound would be the same. For example, the beating of a single drum. Next, dynamics. Now, in music we use dynamics. Now, the word dynamics normally describes how loud or soft a note is played. Dynamics normally fall under a wider category of expressive techniques. For example, they are given instructions for the performer to play loudly or softly, smoothly or detached, and many other effects. Next is timbre, or also known as tone color. Now, in tone color is basically, or a timbre is a sound being produced which is referred to timbre or tone color. Now, timbre is a bit different. It's difference between the harsh, scratchy sound of an electrical guitar and the classy rounded sound of a piano, for example, or a bird whispering sound of a flute. Now, all these instruments could actually be played exactly the same note. But yet again, anyone would be able to recognize instantly an electrical guitar from a piano from a flute. This is because they have different timbre or different tone color. And this is why it's easy to recognize the difference between a guitar, a piano, or a flute. Next is structure. Now, structure is another important element in music because it's defined by several things. For example, scales, arpeggios, rhythm, key signature, melodic patterns, variations, etc. Now, musical structures also normally we kind of refer to like an overall layout of a musical work or a musical piece or a musical song as a whole. Now, this is commonly known and there are several forms, and one of the most simplest form is binary form. Now, in which there is what is binary form, in which one section of music, for example, part A, which is then juxtaposed against maybe a part contrasting, for example, part B, section B, okay, where it normally finishes the given song or piece, basically an A-B structure, and then they want to expand it. On this is a ternary form, which is the same as binary, except that the A section is repeated, marking the overall structure as A, B, A, and that is ternary form. Now, there's another type of musical form. For example, it was actually made popular during the classical era, and that is rondo form. Now, a rondo form is where the A section is repeated throughout the work, but is interpreted by a contrasting episode, marking any work in a random form, which typically normally has a structure of abacada. For example, A, B, A, C, A, D, A, etc. Now, there's also larger structures which include sonata form, and this was actually developed in the classical period. Now, the sonata form, normally it's known, or often the structure is the first movement of a sonata, symphony, and a concerto. And the sonata form is comprised or made up of 4 sections, which is A, B, C, D. Now, there are 4 important parts to develop to a structure of a song. The first part is exposition. Now, what is exposition? It basically introduces the main theme in the tonic key, and basically it has subdominant theme in a related key. And normally it often goes to the dominant, or if in a minor key, it normally goes to the relative minor. Now, the next section is development. Now, what is a development? Basically, it develops and elaborates the themes and explores new and exciting key centers to the song or to the piece. Now, the next one is recapitulation. Now, this normally returns to the tonic key at any stage in the main theme and the subdominant theme. And this is where basically the subdominant theme is often reworked back to stay in the tonic. And the last part is coda, which concludes the piece, or basically the ending of the piece. And this is how a sonata structure is built. Now, the last section is texture. Now, what is texture? Basically, it refers to the layering of sounds on top of each other. And normally it represents or describes the depth, nature, and relationship of those layers of sounds, or basically voices, if you think it's easier to understand. And normally it has a vertical and a horizontal relationship between the voices. Some common textures are basically monophonic texture. Now, what is that? It's basically a melody by its own, without any harmony and without any other rhythm. For example, singing in the shower, or mox chanting, or any type of drum. Next is polyphonic texture. Now, that one has 2 or more melodies, and normally it is heard at the same time. For example, you can sing row, row, row your boat as a round or a Bach fugue. Next is homophonic texture. Now, that one is a melody which is normally accompanied by a harmony or maybe a less important melody. It's very popular in music and basically classical music. For example, like Beethoven's Moonlight Sonata or a church hymn. Next is hydrophonic texture. Now, what is that? It's basically 2 versions of the same melody which can be heard at the same time. And normally it's often to be known as a plain melody and a variation that is played over the top. The last one is a mixed texture. Now, that one is more of a musical texture. For example, singing around, polyphony, which is accompanied by guitar, chords, homophony. And texture, normally they describe such terms as thick, dense, or even open at times. And this is why texture has different layerings of sounds, because they have very contrasting sounds. That's all for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.